The Albula Line is one of many iconic railway lines in Switzerland. It's famous for the breathtaking scenery, myriad of impressive engineering feats, and Glacier Express passenger train, not to mention its use as an important lifeline for people living in the area. Today, we're having a look at this route as it appears in Train Simulator, to determine whether the add-on is good or bad, and I apologise in advance if I mispronounce any of the place names. This add-on was made by Thomson Interactive and released in September 2016. You can still buy it from Steam, where it costs 48 New Zealand dollars at full price. And as for what the add-on includes in terms of route coverage, you get the 65 kilometres or 40.38 miles of track from Moritz to Thusis. Why they didn't include the rest of the line to Chur is anyone's guess, but regardless, there are still some iconic landmarks to see as you drive along the line, such as the Landwasser Viaduct near Thusis. The track gauge is 3 foot 3 3/8 of an inch, otherwise known as 1000 mm or metre gauge. For whatever reason, this route only includes one form of motive power, namely the Rhatische Bahn GE 4/4 Mark III electric locomotive. 12 examples of this class were built by the Swiss Locomotive and Machine Works, ASEA Brown Boveri, and Adtrans between 1993 and 1999. Despite her small size, the GE 4/4 Mark III is hardly a weakling, with a top speed of 100 km per hour and a power output of 4,160 horsepower. Besides running most services on the Albula Line, these things also haul car shuttle trains through the 19-km-long Verena Tunnel, which opened in 1999 and connects the Engadine and Lanka to Davos-Platz lines. The engines are numbered from 641 to 652, and each member of the class is named after a station on the RHB network, complete with a unique coat of arms to boot. For example, number 647 is named Grusch, after one of the stations on the Lanka to Davos-Platz line. An extension of this route meets the Albula Line at Thusis. As for unpowered rolling stock, the default rail scene is just as disappointing as the motive power offering. The route itself only includes the Glacier Express coaches and LB-V flatbed wagon. Unless you buy the other RHB add-ons from Thomson Interactive and Rivet Games, of which there are a reasonable amount, you'll be stuck with a very boring and limited rail scene. In November 2016, 2 months after the Albula Line itself, Thomson released a so-called enhancement pack for it. It costs 24 New Zealand dollars at full price, and includes an additional livery for the GE 4/4 Mark III. This depicts locomotive number 650 in her special UNESCO livery, which she received in 2008 to commemorate the Albula Line's designation as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The pack also includes the SP-W flatbed wagon, ZA tanker wagon, not to be confused with the Tasrail ZA class diesel locomotive, and 3 variants of the EW2 passenger coach. I wouldn't buy this pack at full price if I were you, because it just isn't worth $24. And unfortunately, we've never had any other liveries for the GE 4/4 Mark III besides the default RHB Red and 650's UNESCO livery. In a way, the first RHB enhancement pack is like a precursor of the notorious gameplay packs in Train Sim World. And weirdly, the EW2 luggage van has a pantograph, and I have absolutely no idea why. Of course, the other Rhatische Bahn rolling stock made by Thomson and Rivet is also compatible with the Albula Line, so you can still make a decently busy and varied rail scene if you've got those other add-ons. These include, but are not limited to, the Arosa Line and RHB Enhancement Pack No. 2. Those packs include the ABE 8/12 Allegra EMU and GE 4/4 Mark II locomotive respectively. As for the ABE 4/4 Mark III railcar, which comes with the third RHB enhancement pack, it's unrealistic to run her on the Albula Line, because the real thing is only equipped to run on the Bernina Line. This route is electrified at 1000 volts DC, instead of the 11,000 volts 16 2/3 Hz AC used by the rest of the RHB network. The sounds on this rolling stock are bizarre, in the sense that it's a mix of new, or at least what were new to the game in 2016, as well as reused recordings, and the latter haven't aged very well. For starters, I swear I could hear the ancient Kuju-era brake sounds as I moved the brake lever when the locomotive was idling. And for whatever reason, part of the door sounds on these coaches was reused from the Class 483 in the original, and now severely outdated, Isle of Wight pack. I also noticed another old sound when I raised and lowered the pantograph, and it sounds like it comes from the original Kuju-era Deutsche Bahn BR101, of all things. The discovery of all those reused sounds has kind of soured my view on what is otherwise decent rolling stock. The locomotive's horn isn't too bad, but it's not dynamic, meaning that it will always play one short-ish recording regardless of how long you hold down the spacebar. At the very least, the motors don't sound reused either. The GE 4/4 Mark III doesn't have a conventional throttle. Instead, it's a combined throttle and speed set system, just like the GE 4/4 Mark II on the Arosa line in Train Sim World. As for how it works, there's a red needle at the base of the throttle wheel that points to a series of numbers, with notches for each multiple of 5. Each number corresponds with the desired speed, in kilometers per hour of course, so the locomotive will accelerate up to and maintain whatever speed the red needle is pointing at. However, this doesn't work when you're going downhill, but that's when the dynamic brakes come in handy. A significant feature on this locomotive, and all of Thomson's RHB motive power for that matter, is the dynamic pantograph that raises and lowers in a realistic manner, depending on the height of the overhead catenary. For whatever reason, this dynamic pantograph function doesn't work on the locomotives running AI services. The route comes with 8 scenarios, but they're all in the somewhat pointless gimmick known as career mode, although you can at least turn the scoring off. However, there are a reasonable number of player-made standard mode scenarios available for free on Steam Workshop if you don't care for career mode, but make sure to check the list of required add-ons before you download them. I quite like the smooth super elevation, and the way the track effectively snakes its way through the mountains. There are several viaducts and tunnels throughout the route, but perhaps the most noteworthy section is between Bergun and Preda, which features 3 spiral tunnels, 2 curved tunnels, and 4 viaducts across the valley. The distance between Bergun and Preda is only 6.5 kilometers as the crow flies, but the length of the track between these 2 stations is 12 kilometers. The route was designed this way in order to maintain a manageable gradient while still overcoming the height difference between the aforementioned stations, which is a staggering 417 metres. In this case, the gradient is kept to around 1 in 31, or 3.2%. That's still very steep by railway standards, but it's nothing compared to the Bernina Line's ruling grade of 1 in 14. Much like the AK coaches that KiwiRail use on their long-distance passenger services, the Glacier Express coaches feature enormous panoramic windows that extend up to the corners of the roof. This design allows unobstructed views of the scenery on the long journey from Zermatt to St. Moritz, and I enjoy riding in the passenger view from time to time. This can be accessed by pressing the 5 key, not the numpad 5 mind, as you're driving along. There's something very distinctive about Thomson Interactive routes, in terms of the way the assets and general scenery look, but I just can't pick it. A unique asset on this route is the working chairlift, which can be seen next to the line at Bergun and Celerina. Unlike other Thomson routes, the sleepers on the Albula Line don't have the developer's logo modelled on them. These are wooden sleepers, as opposed to the concrete sleepers found on the West Coast Main Line Trent Valley route. I think the catenary, stations, and other trackside assets look very good, some of the better assets I've seen in this game. And for the most part, the route is very well detailed, but the immersion is broken by the subpar scenery on the distant mountains, which is often a major visual distraction. The same problem can be found on Thomson's Fort William to Mallaig route, which they released in October 2014, the better part of 2 years before the Albula Line, although I don't consider that route to be horrible either. In real life, the vintage GE 6/6 Mark I, aka Crocodile, electric locomotive number 407 is on display at a museum adjacent to Bergun station, but the Crocodile is nowhere to be seen in-game, for whatever reason. Although there is a Crocodile locomotive in Train Simulator, she isn't a narrow gauge one. The specific locomotive in question is the Österreichische Bundesbahn in Class 1189, which runs on the standard gauge track in Austria. It takes around 85 to 90 minutes to complete a full-length run on the St. Moritz to Thusis route. Most of the time, the speed limit only varies between 45 and 65 km per hour, but there is at least one section where you really get to open the taps. The section in question is the 5.865 km long Albula Tunnel, located between Preda and Spinas stations. The tunnel opened in 1904 after a 6-year-long construction period, and the speed limit here is 90 km per hour, which feels stupidly fast on a meter-gauge railway. Spinas happens to be the summit of the line, at 1,815 metres above sea level. Once you leave the Albula tunnel and go through the station, there's a steep 1 in 31 descent down to Beva, which eases out slightly to 2.9%, or around 1 in 34, further down the hill. Beva station is a junction where the Albula line meets the Engadine line from Scholte Rasp. The next station is Samadan, a big and busy junction where a spur to Pontresina branches off. Said spur meets the Bernina line at Pontresina, and is used by the popular Bernina Express service, as well as regular passenger trains. At the end of the day, I still think the Albula line is a decent add-on, despite the limited motive power offered in the base route and bad scenery on the distant mountains. It still offers a decently challenging driving experience, and something out of the ordinary, what with it being a meter-gauge line in Switzerland and all that. And indeed, that's pretty much the one main reason why I still recommend this route, in spite of its age.